Weird. Yeah, at least you're on the phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is a problem because that's where I reference my articles. But if this kicks in, I got my laptop restarting now. We'll see if that helps.
Yeah, yeah.
It did
Well,
last time.
you can always come back on that. All right. So welcome everybody. As I said, we're coming. We're coming. We're here. Okay. Welcome everybody to Talking Niagara with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. So how's things been going, Dave?
Oh well, not that good. I've got a leak in my unit. It's been there since before the 20th of September. That's when I broke into the bulkhead. So I've got an elbow that is coming in the very corner of my unit.
Oh,
and is dripping. And it caused a damage to a bulkhead that's there, kind of like almost like a duct thing and access. And it caused some damage, and the leak comes from above. And yesterday we had a guy come in. The lady upstairs got the special plumber she needs because she has a walk-in tub that can only be worked on by people from that tub. Otherwise, the warranty that she has on it won't continue. But he came in, he can't find anything wrong with her tub, and I agree with him. So there's a leak that I don't know where it's from, and it's not from my units, but from one of the other units, but I can't figure out where it's from. So that's going to be a pain in the ass. I can see that.
Yeah, that's a problem with that. Was always the problem. You see, with a house, the leak is coming from this point or the point above, and you control all of that, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to get some plumbers in here to figure out where it is. Like I said, it's coming from above, but it's not doing any damage to the above units. It's doing damage to mine, but the leak isn't coming from my plumbing, so.
Yeah. And that's always the problem with the person at the bottom.
Yeah. And that's me.
And as Mike says, water problems suck. And I don't know why, but Gary thinks Mr. Trump might help you.
Mr. Trump?
Yeah, Mr. Trump might help you. I don't know. I'm just passing the message on. Don't shoot the messenger.
Well, Mr. Trump could make my plumbing great again.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly what we need. Like the way he's made cats and dogs great again.
Yeah. Okay. Don't go to any barbecues in Springfield.
Yeah, but it's okay. The cats have got their guns out now,
Yeah, well, there's so many guns down there. I wouldn't doubt that cats and dogs could get some.
Yeah. Give him right. Give him 3 pounder wings and he'll fix anything. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate the humor. We really do. We really do. Okay, so Burgess is basically saying the city budget point of reckoning is coming for Niagara Falls in relation to the city budget. So we're going to have to watch out about this.
Yeah, well, the overall the city 3.9% is kind of like the bare minimum raise in taxes. Burgess says you can't go anything below that. You want to run the city, you have to do that. And he is loath to do that because he sees that the incomes of average households are more around like 2%. So he says it's really not sustainable.
And there's many thousands of people here, I bet, in Niagara whose wages haven't gone up at all.
Yeah, quite true. So basically what he's saying is he's saying, look, you asked for me to find places to cut. I suggested a few. you didn't want them.
Yeah.
All right. So you asked me for $1 million. Remember Mona Patel find $1 million. Well, he did find a few things and they all shut it down. No. Now we're at a situation where if they want to keep the city running as it is, they're going to have at least 3.9% increase in taxes, which doesn't go down good with the people, of course.
Yeah.
and
especially at a time, you know, 5-6 years ago, possibly people were saying, yeah, okay, we can deal with 3.9% because my wages have gone up by 5%. Now, when your wages have not gone up at all in the last 5 years, you're kind of going, well, I can't pay 3.9% on top of last year's 5.7%, on top of the previous year's whatever percent.
Yep.
You know?
Yes, that's unfortunately that's true. And what Burgess is saying basically is you wanted me to find cuts, I gave them to you, you rejected them. Now the reckoning is coming, and that's why they have this this kind of questions for the city, for the residents of the city. What do you want cut, and what are your priorities? Because he's saying you're not going to be able to make these maintain the city at levels you want with tax raises the way you want them without cuts. So what are your priorities? Because other things we're going to have to cut.
Yeah, and I get it where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from. The question about anything to do with cuts is nobody, of course, likes it.
Well, he did point out. Now he's pointed out how much of a burden the fire department is on the city. It takes about a quarter, one out of every $4, and the biggest pay packets for the city are from the fire department. And like we point that out in another article we did here. So the fire department is a huge burden on the city, and that the compensation for firefighters and their retired members are very high. And he's pretty much pointed out you might have to do something about that. So can you imagine our counselors are frightened to death about something like that? They don't want to face the fire department. Fire department rules them. When Burgess says he could save $250,000 by just switching to a different different call center, they rejected it flat out.
Well, and the thing about this is, if you can save $250,000 and not lose a single job by switching the employees to a different call center, why aren't we doing it?
Well, the employees were safe. As a matter of fact, they were going to get paid more.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't we doing it?
Well, it's because Niagara Falls Fire Department wants complete control over that, and the city council was fearful of the fire department. You could tell they don't. The fire department is very popular in town, and when you had to face the fire department and say you got to do this, and they say we don't want to, the councilors are not. They don't want to become unpopular by going against the fire department. Like the fire department is very popular in town, and people have a high regard for it. When the fire department says I need more, they give them.
I have a high regard for what they do, but again, the fire department needs to be, it's not just actually, I also going to say that, in fact, actually part of the problem here is him saying, Mr. Burgess saying that if we're going to do something, what you have to do is to think about what areas where you're going to cut, what areas of city spending you're going to cut and how much by. But in reality, a lot of the problems that we have with city budget is the fact that the city itself doesn't know how to manage its money.
Well, I'm. They would take exception with that, I think,
Of course they will.
because they've been always looking for cutbacks, cutbacks, cutbacks. But what Burgess has said before, in particular, let's go back to the fire department. He's saying the other departments suffer because the fire department gets what it wants, basically, because the fire department is so expensive that the the priorities of other departments are decreased. And he said that you're going to have trouble attracting engineers or any other kind of experts in the city because when it comes for pay raises for or equipment for other departments in the city, they are on second fiddle. They're the ones that have to reduce in order for the fire department to get what it wants. Now, this is, of course, no complaint about the fire department. I make that very clear. But what he is saying very clearly that the compensation level and the fire department is out of control. Not to to make a pun, that there's too much money going there, and the other services in Niagara Falls are reduced because of it.
Well,
Now he's also said that you're going to have to do the unpopular thing of doing some cuts. Now, no city councilor wants to cut things that are popular. If somebody says, "Well, we're going to have to close down the McBain Center," this is that won't happen. But let's just say, and all the people go there and swimming and use the McBain Center and all that. And the city says, "Well, we can't afford it anymore. We're going to close it." And knowing the popularity of that building, what member of council is going to say, yeah, that's a good idea. Pencil me in for a vote against to eliminate the McBain Center. What politician wants to be made unpopular by going that way? Like, who can make that decision when their popularity is a thing that is most important to a politician, particularly when it comes to re-election time? So that's one thing I'll say. I don't know. Now, what would be the cuts? Now, there is going to be this online sort of effort to try to figure out what the citizens of Niagara Falls have in their priorities, because basically figure out what you want as your priorities, because we're going to have to do some cuts. And although the citizens' priorities may not factor into it every time, but it's going to be a guideline for the city and their cuts. Cuts are coming.
Well,
Now,
what
there's
they
only two ways
basically-
of running the city at this point, with the inflationary pressures and decreased productivity. We hear all about that. So, what are you going to do if you're the city? You do one of two things:
depends.
raise taxes or make cuts. That sounds quite a lot like the federal and provincial government, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what is going on here is a budgetary engagement survey that they've got. Please tell us if the city should increase, decrease, or maintain its budget investment in the following programs. And then it talks about cultural programs, economic development programs, facility maintenance, e.g., rehabilitation of repairs of community centers, arenas, and other facilities, libraries, parks and trails, pools and splash pads. And all you're being asked is increase, maintain, or decrease.
Yes. So basically, I think there's going to be
my option in all of these is you're probably overspending in each and every one of these. Let's examine the budget. Let's get the spending right.
Well, that's what they've been trying to do. That's the problem. And but people are loath to have any sort of cutbacks, and special interest groups may be a problem here. Of course, if you have certain cultural things or other things, people will fight vehemently for these things, but it won't be the majority of the people. It might be, you might be a very strong vocal, I don't know, let's say it's the I don't know, let's say it's some cultural thing or artist thing or something like that, and they'll fight tooth and nail to keep it going.
Yeah.
And yet, let's see, I gotta try to get back on this way again. Anyway, so the problem here is, what do you want to cut? Now you're saying, get back to the table and find all the efficiencies that you can find. Well, they keep doing that. They keep doing that all the time, and in the end, in fact, then what happens is Mona Patel or others say, well, we want you to find $1 million for us to cut back. It's got to be $1 million. So Burgess goes and says, okay, I'll look for it, but I'll tell you right now, you're not going to like it if I find it. He gave that warning in that very same meeting. So he does. He goes, starts looking for things they can cut. And what happens? They don't like it. So they're going to have to start making the tough decision. Where are we going to cut back?
There we go.
I'm back on again.
You remove your phone, otherwise you're going to get terrible echoes.
Yes, I'm going to. There we
Yeah.
go. I'm off. Good show. I'm back on again.
Yeah.
Now
Okay, so city infrastructure. Okay, so Mike is saying city infrastructure is in trouble, from waterworks treatment to water supply to roads. Yeah, absolutely. And the burden is on the fire department due to the overpopulation in a city not built for it. Yes.
So,
yep.
So basically, the very first sentence in this article by Ray Terry says, "A reckoning is on the horizon when it comes to providing the level of municipal service that residents expect and the ability of the taxpayers to pay." That basically sums it right up there. And we'll get back to what he said before. It's hard to raise taxes by 3.9% when your household income is going up by 2%. So basically, it is, what do you want? Just for us to maintain our inflationary pressures is 3.9%. The stuff that we buy, a lot of it, the construction material area, is expensive. It's going up higher than other things in inflation. And so that he does this. Council has asked us to come back with budget less than 3.9%, and that's what we focused on, which means some cuts. We did present a number of options for $1 million in savings. Council chose not to take a bunch of them, so we will be integrating some of those into the budget process. So basically, you can't have your cake and eat it too. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but you see, for example, well, yeah, I get it, but also I think it's incumbent upon them to actually find the most effective way to spend our money. And I guarantee you they are not spending our money effectively right now.
Well, Peter, you can go and give any suggestions you want. If you look at the budget, and if you want to look through the budget, I've looked at some of the items in the budget in previous years. It'd be pretty darn hard for me to,
We only see one page for every 10 pages, or 5 to 10 pages that councillors see.
That's right, and they all see them, and they all want cut. They all want reduction in taxes, and yet none of them really come up with anything. And when they have been given an option that Burgess has given them, they turn it down.
Yeah.
They've asked for efficiencies. They've asked for all these other things, and as Burgess has said, when the pressure comes, the fire hall gets, the firefighters get primary place in pay raises or other benefits and when we think of all the other departments raising, they're not. I mean, they have to cut back or reduce their services in order to keep places like the fire service going. So there's going to be a lot. I think there's going to be
a lot of the stuff around the outside, cultural things, artistic things, all kinds of other things like that are going to have to be gone. Now, through the program, $350,000 from the municipal capital budgets is available to enhance parks and trails. Do you want to reduce that? Do you want to reduce your amount of parks and trails? You know, that's basically it. That's basically what he's saying. The hard decisions are going to have to come, and what this survey is doing for the residents to ask what their priorities is just going to be a guideline for the councillors.
Yeah, but let's look at one of the things that's on their environment on their survey. They're questioning over, should we have an energy audit to pursue building retrofits such as HVAC upgrades, LED lighting, and motion sensors in our city-run facilities? And by having things like motion sensors, it means that, hey, if the office is not in use, you can scale down the use of lighting automatically. LED lighting, way more efficient, way more cost effective than any other form of lighting that we've had. And how many of our offices today have still got horrible neon lighting that is basically both bad for your health and bad, you know, and well, bad for the health, bad for the environment, and not very energy efficient. All right. So a lot of questions like that I think we really need to kind of sort through.
Well, they have done, and that's a good suggestion there. But there'll be a capital outlay to have it done right off the bat. It will save money in the future, but immediately it will be a capital outlay. You're going to have to throw money at it. You got to spend money to save money, basically. To quote, was that movie with Cher in it, and her father. Anyway, so you got to spend money to save money. In this particular case, you modernize your systems. That will cost you up front, but in the long run, it will save the city much more money. So I would say that's a probably good thing to do. What else do they have on that list?
On that list, okay, on that list, this was about environmental sustainability. They're talking about getting more fleet vehicles that are hybrid or electric vehicles. So one of the questions here is, I think that probably a lot of people are going to say that, hey, we should be doing more of them, but I'm going to also say that, hey, you need to counterbalance that against the cost of the vehicle. Just when we look at a car alone, buying a hybrid, you know, if you're buying say if you're buying a car that costs $30,000, for example, not going expensive, but the hybrid version of that is likely to cost $40,000 and the electric version of that $50,000, right? So if such versions exist, you get where I'm saying. So whilst we do need to get more electric or hybrid vehicles in the longer run, we also have to balance that out against the cost, against the cost of cost on it. Why would we, is there a time to buy hybrid vehicles? Maybe we should buy them in 1s and 2s right now. We shouldn't be going out and replacing the entire fleet.
Yes. But the fleet has to be changed. And that became very clear in the last budget. They have deferred. They have deferred over and over and over again. They keep repairing old vehicles. They can't repair them anymore, particularly their heavy equipment. So when you keep deferring an expense that you have to have, you're paying much more money in the long run to have it maintained. So the only thing you can do now is to change. Now their fleet has to be changed. Now you're talking about the hybrid vehicles, and that could be the day-to-day running vehicles that the city needs. When you talk about heavy equipment, you're going to need to get new stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about. All I was just trying to talk about there was, if we were to buy standard gas vehicles versus hybrid vehicles, the cost of buying a hybrid vehicle is more expensive. So therefore, one might ask the question, while we're in a budget crunch, why would we buy the hybrid vehicle? Why wouldn't we buy the normal gas one? It's not to say we shouldn't have a commitment to going green in the longer run, but we should be conscious of that and think about that.
Well, we're in a situation now where this is exactly what I've been talking about in other when we're talking about the federal government. You have your idealistic thresholds. You want to do this and you want to do that, but when the reality comes in, you can only afford to do so much. So you want to clean up. In this particular case, it's really nice, and it will be the average citizen would more likely prefer a less polluting car. However, if they want a less polluting car, they're going to have to pay more taxes. So that's the option they're giving to the city. It might be better off now to buy cheaper, ordinary combustion engine cars. Now, a lot of other things have to factor into this: the reliability of the automobile, how long do they expect it to last, and how much gas it's going to use. Now, if the argument can be made that a hybrid vehicle will use less gas and in the long run pay for itself or pay for the difference between the two, but you're not making much savings there. I think in a particular case like that, you got to go bare bones. You have to find your most basic car and with the most basic things in it. I mean, even take out the radio if it means anything. Yeah. So the idea is to go basic on all city vehicles. Definitely basic, bench seats, whatever it has to, you know what I mean? Even if we have to go back to standard transmissions, I don't care, whatever. Whatever is the cheapest.
They're not necessarily any cheaper these days, but I get what your point. I get your point. Basically, what's the cheapest we can buy? If, for example, if what you're doing is you're providing a vehicle for an engineer to get from the depot to the construction site, then it doesn't need to be, he's left his personal car at the depot. He's not adding mileage to it, but he's driving him and a couple of co-workers to the job site. It doesn't have to be ultra comforting.
I got a better idea. Get a vehicle that has a pedal in it so that they can pedal their way there. Yeah, well, you could put a bike chain in the car so you can pedal your way to the site. This does a lot of good. For one thing, there's no emissions, and for the next thing, the engineer that needs that car is going to get in much better shape. It's better for him, and it costs less for the consumer. The taxpayer is happy.
Okay, then the other thing is you could send the guy out on the bus. Oh, except the bus.
That's true too. Well, what they do basically at the city, they'll if you have to go here or there and use your own car, you submit mileage.
Yeah, I know, and that's probably what we would end up doing rather than providing a city vehicle. You offer mileage. Okay, there's another question here about city user fees, right? Consistent with other municipalities, Niagara Falls charges fees for various services. These services add to the residents' quality of life. So, for example, pay to go swimming or time to use the ice rink and that sort of thing. Use the soccer fields and pool time, swimming lessons, etc. So should we be paying those sort of things? Should there be, should we put the prices of those things up? Should we be paying for those sort of things?
Well, my opinion in that is there's only a certain segment of the population that uses the rinks. There's only a certain segment of the population that uses the pools. Yeah. However, it's very important for that certain segment. Like I'm not using the rinks. I've used the rinks in Niagara Falls my whole life. I've used them. I played lacrosse in the rinks in town here. So I've had a full use of those provided by the city. Now, but the fact of the matter is, it's a small percentage of the people that actually use it. So do you then weigh them down with more user fees?
Yeah. And
So
here's
those
the
are very
question.
difficult questions. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the question. You've got the decision between there should be no user fees. These are all valuable services and should all be offered free of charge to the taxpayer. To the other extent that the user should pay for the cost of all services they're using. So, in other words, that if you're using the ice rink at the Gale Centre for practicing your ice hockey, then you pay for an hour's worth of an hour's worth of ice time.
Well, you do anyway. But let's say you rent the rink and you play hockey, but the rental fees for the rink are very reasonable. And I propose that I won't be playing hockey anymore in town. So it's okay with me if you raise the prices for
Yeah, but again, as a long-term hockey player, surely you would take the viewpoint of, I think I would encourage everybody to go and use the rinks, and I think there's a value that we should pay. Maybe you're not saying that they should pay every penny, but maybe you're saying that a user should pay 25% of the cost of the service, with the general taxpayer paying the majority. Maybe you're in that bracket. Maybe you're in the bracket that says you should pay 50%, with the taxpayer paying 50%. Right?
Well, you see here, you're in a situation here where you see the dilemma. What we do, we find a population that's getting fatter and more stationary, and really kids are of particular vulnerability to become more stationary, sitting in front of their computers, not getting exercises. They're unhealthy. So what do you want to do? Do you want to discourage the kid from going to the ice rink and on a Sunday afternoon go for a skate with his friends?
Yep.
Or do you want to
good question. Yeah.
Or do you want the
You're frozen up, Dave. And then the question is, with aging facilities, are you paying more to replace them?
So you'd make an investment in the future. If you make an investment in the future, you make those ice rinks and other facilities inexpensive, so especially young people can get out and get fit, or your older population to stay fit. That's good for the economy. That's good for everybody. Makes less strain on health services going forward.
Okay,
but the problem is who's going to pay for it. So there you have this dilemma.
Yeah, and then the next question on the list is about aging facilities. When it comes to aging facilities such as pools and arenas, how do you pay to refurbish and extend, enhance, or do you, okay, so do you pay to replace a facility with minimal features, but at a higher cost rate to the taxpayer? Or do you invest in improving other assets in the city that have fewer, better quality assets and at a more sustainable cost?
Well, having an aging structure myself, I could use a massive makeover. So I think that's kind of rather expensive. So if to use my own body as an example, this aging old structure needs a makeover. It'll cost a lot of money. There is a problem with taking on a structure like that and improving it. What you might want to do is find out who uses what and where. And if you find that a particular, let's go back to rinks again, or a pool, let's say a pool is being used quite frequently, you might want to just keep that one open and close another one. But the other thing you could do is advertise for the other pools that aren't being used as much, so that people won't crowd one pool and go to another. See, those are all kinds of things when you're talking about that. I would think that a lot of the stuff on the edges, Peter Biker comments, energy vendors want to make plentiful and cheap fossil fuels unpalatable. Yeah, well, we are trying to transition to using less, but how much is that going to cost us? Just like Peter
And
Giblett has said.
Peter says basically bring back the rickshaw. There you go. Bring back the rickshaw for those city workers needing to move across the town to do those jobs that they're doing.
Oh God, I just got an image of temporary foreign workers pulling a rickshaw around town with the mayor in it.
Oh, that would be a bad publicity picture, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we're providing opportunity for people from all over the world. But I think, yeah, but basically when you get right down to it, what do we want to cut? How do we want to cut it? And it's all going to be difficult decisions.
Okay.
Very difficult.
Corporate partnerships can also fill a gap in funding. Absolutely. Absolutely, they can. The only trouble is we're very limited in the corporations we've got here, and many of those corporate partnerships are already being stretched to the limit already.
Okay. Well, should we move on to something else? We've been on this one.
Okay, so Polyev lashes out at Bell Canada CEO and calling him overpaid.
Well,
true, very true. But is that the astute political thing to be saying?
Well, Polyev it got really angry because they took a quote of his and they made it sound
butchered it.
They edited it and made it sound that he endorsed something that he didn't, and basically got very angry about that. I accept the network's explanation. It was a mistake. We found that these mistakes happen. CBC got in a lot of trouble with the Indigenous people because of a demonstration, and they didn't put the full clip of an episode of a news event in.
Yeah,
but he's jumped on this to make. I see what he's doing here. He did not accept the apology of the network for this, to make it look as if he's saying something that he didn't. I accept the apologies of the CTV, but Polyev doesn't, and he's used this as a vehicle to complain about the media. And CTV itself is a national broadcaster, but it is incredibly in debt. It's laid off all kinds of workers. The government has tried to bolster it in years gone by. In fact, it got in trouble because it gave it money to help it out. And what did it do? It turned around and laid off workers. So the CTV is in a very bad shape. It's got incredible debts, and it can't sustain itself. And I think pretty much what Polyev's done here is to bring that to issue more than really. I don't think he's really all that upset that they made a mistake. He could actually be a gentleman here and accept the apologies and make warnings, be more careful next time. But he sees the political advantage of going on about this.
Yeah.
I have to caution Polyev myself as he's going overboard. He's pointing the finger and telling too many people that they are incompetent and they're useless. The government, Singh is useless. The Trudeau government is useless. CBC is useless. CTV is useless.
Actually, what you don't want to do is call ordinary workers useless, ordinary voters useless.
Well, he's careful on that. He's very, very careful on that. But he does point out we're not being served well by our broadcasters, our national broadcasters, especially when it comes to saying the news.
I think he's right. And then there's a couple of things I would also state is that Bell and telecom companies should not be allowed to actually have a stake in television companies. They should be butted out of that. They make a lot of money on telecoms. They should not be permitted into other methods of communications, other communications devices. Stick to your telephones, and you're not permitted into broadcasting.
That's nearly impossible because they have the right to do whatever they want to do. There's only special situations where the government can limit investment here and there. If you look at any conglomerate, let's say you take
well, it's part
Bank
of
of
the
Nova
problem we have.
Scotia. The Bank of Nova Scotia is in the same group conglomerate that a construction company is, electronic service company is, waste disposal company. And if you look at that, you'll see the whole company and how many factors it owns. So these are all multinational, multi-layered over companies. Now, I'm not so sure. In this particular case, I think Polyev has used this to point out our problem with our national broadcasters. We know his opinion of CBC, and we know as what's happening here with CTV.
I'm intrigued by what he said here about they've got near junk status.
That's true. That's true. This is a core. The CTV may never be able to pay off its debts. It may never be able to become viable. Its stock has plummeted. Its resources is losing money hand over fist. So
I have to say that I haven't watched anything on CTV for a while.
No, once they got rid of their anchor woman, I just didn't like the whole idea of that.
Yeah.
Plus, I find that only snippets. There are some really good news aspects of the CBC and the CTV and Global, but all in all, each one has a bit of an agenda. Basically, I think that's why the Conservatives are so angry about it. Like in St. Paul, riding when they were having the election, the Conservative MP would not give interviews to any news network because the Conservatives are very convinced that whatever the network is, they're going to put a negative spin on the candidate somehow, somewhere. So they just refuse to talk to the media.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and you can imagine what it's like in the States. It's just stupid in the States.
Yeah.
It's like you have to just, when you go on to a news interview in the States, you have to say, okay, well, this is CNBC and it is left leaning, and this one Fox is right leaning. So you have to prepare yourself ahead of time because they're going to limit the amount of questions and they're going to end the focus of their. So there's not going to be objective news reporting.
Yeah,
I've noticed the CBC is being much more objective since Polyev has started railing about them. I think I've seen the quality of their news broadcasting go better because of that, more objectivity to it. But in any case, Polyev has made a big deal out of this, and I caution him to make a big deal out of mountains out of molehills. Now, in this particular case, he could have brought up issues with CTV in a much more gentlemanly fashion. And I think there's a little bit of a problem with Polyev railing against everybody and pointing the finger and telling everybody how rotten and stupid and how that kind of thing. That does not bode well with me. You have to be more of a professional.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
and question about making mountains out of molehills, and that has actually been Polyev's style, though.
But he's got a lot of traction using that.
His stance on the carbon tax, for a start, it's making a mountain out of a molehill to some extent.
Well, I'm not so sure in that particular case because the carbon tax is so is such objectionable to the average person, and it's also reports are that it's actually going to stifle the economy. And now that the NDP have broken away from the Liberals, they don't like that carbon tax either. Suddenly Singh doesn't like that one, and does like a carbon tax, but doesn't like the idea that the average person is burdened by this.
Okay, let's move on. That Bloc Quebecois is threatening to push for an early election if it doesn't top up pensions by October 29th. Blanchet said he's had no discussions with Trudeau on this matter, but basically the old age security pensions he's saying need to be put up by at least 10% for seniors between 65 and 74. When they've they've topped up those payments for those over 75, but not done it for the group down.
So the question here is, like I said before, the Bloc says it's you want an escort, we'll be your escort, but we are a high maintenance escort. So okay, you want to date us? Well, it's going to cost you, right? You're not going to be giving us costume jewelry, buddy. You're not gonna get away with just taking us out to dinner and then going home for you know what. You're going to have to pay for it big time. You're going to have to come up with this sort of adding more to the OAS of seniors from 64 to 75. Now that will cost a huge amount of money. And basically they're saying, you give this to us and we'll keep you alive until Christmas, right? We'll get you into the next year. But if you don't give this to us, well, we won't protect
but they also say they want to pass a private members bill which exempts the supply managed farm sectors, dairy, poultry and eggs, from any future trade negotiations.
Yes, and that's another big issue here.
I'm not sure that sounds not as if it's not legal. I don't know the details, and that one paragraph isn't giving me the details I need, but I'm not sure it's legal to do that.
Well, it's part of the NAFTA agreement, right? It's part of the trade agreement we have with the states. We've traditionally tried to protect that sector of the economy, and for Quebec, that's very, very important. Now, increasing the benefits for seniors from 64 to 75 to make the top up the same as those over 75, that will benefit all Canadians. But what he's talking about, the dairy products stuff be protected from NAFTA, basically. That has to be negotiated when the next time they negotiate NAFTA or something. So what you're doing here is they're asking for stuff I'm pretty sure that the government can't come up with. When Joy was interviewed, she's the one of the ministers there. When she was interviewed, she was put point blankly, you have voted against this in the past. Will you vote for it to keep yourself into power? And of course, she didn't, just give some nonsense, deflecting, not a nonsense, but a deflection answer. And she maintained that no matter how many times the journalists tried to get under.
Yeah. Right.
Now but it will also cost, I think it was $10 billion just for the seniors upgrade. You're sitting at a time when the Canadian government is badly in debt. The productivity level is being reduced, and you're taking more out of the government coffers. This is and the Trudeau government has just had a get together out in Vancouver where they brought in Mark Carney to tell them what they had to do. And one of it is, don't add any more expenses to your already ballooning debt.
Yeah.
What will the Liberals do? What will the Liberals do when they see something like this? You can't have your cake and eat it too. It comes right down to that. Yeah, you want to give seniors a top up in their money. I would love it because I'm a senior. Oh yeah, give it to me for sure. How can the country afford it? And will the government now negotiate with the Bloc?
Yeah, absolutely fair questions. But the question also is, Liberals got 153 out of 338 seats, and to get a majority in any vote, they need 169, which means they either need the NDP's 25 block of 25, or they need the Bloc's block of 33 MPs, right, to stand with them to support any bill that they've got. Conversely, the Conservatives 119 actually require both NDP and Bloc to actually defeat the Liberals in the House?
Who is going to hold up the government? Is it going to be the Bloc, or is it going to be NDP? Is it going to be them both? But this is a good move by the Bloc. When they propose these kind of this will enhance their status in Quebec, because it shows the people of Quebec, well, we've got the power now, and it's up to the Liberals to do what we want them to do for the benefit of our people in Quebec. So he is really doing a little bit of campaigning here on the side. This is good. Whether they take it or not take it is good for us. If they agree to it, it makes us look like heroes. If they don't, it really shows our Quebec constituents that we're fighting for them and we're trying to get things accomplished for the people of Quebec. Now, that not charging anymore for the dairy products kind of thing, exempting them from the free trade and all that other stuff, that's non-starter. That almost killed us during the last NAFTA agreement. We had to give up other stuff for it. So that's a non-starter. And the $10 billion, maybe the government will meet them halfway on something like that. But whatever the case is, Bloc looks real good to the voters of Quebec right now. Is part of the intent.
Okay, the other thing is that Poilievre tried to actually bring a non-confidence vote this week, which failed because Bloc, NDP and Greens, along with 2 independents, voted against it.
Yes, because they're not prepared for the election. And the longer right now, the Conservatives are wildly popular, if you want to believe the polls. And this is the last, they don't want an election now. They want anything to delay, hope that the current will change a bit. It's not going to, however, because the more they resist a government, an election that almost everybody wants, it's bad. Also, we could point out that Trudeau is going back to his old methods by being sort of a very popular modern type dude. He was on the Stephen Colbert show. He went down there. So what he wants to do is he wants to get out his message, and he finds that American TV is the best way to do it by going on a talk show. Now he wants to look suave. He wants to look cool. He wants that magic to return that he had back in 2015, where he was the coolest thing going. He's young. He's with it. He's hip. However, the outside belies the inside. The inside is still the old style politician in there that really can't accept what the future is asking him.
Yeah. It's a whole weird ball game. All right, so let's very briefly turn to Israel, and basically Israel seems to be looking more at being more fierce than their attack in the Gaza against Hezbollah. So does this mean that for now Gaza's on pause while they're going after Hezbollah and potentially opening up a war front to Lebanon?
Well, the United States is calling for calm and doesn't want this to escalate. They have now put 40,000 U.S. troops in the area. What's that signal? This whole pager thing that they had going. Now, the reason why this attacks are rather sudden is because the Israeli government was able to fix all those pagers with exploding devices in them, and they were going to use them at the optimum time. What happened was somebody in Hezbollah found out that these pagers were fixed. They neutralized that guy, but there was two guys that figured out these things were fixed. They couldn't get to the second guy. So they had to explode them before the news got out fast enough that they were explodable. So what they did was they killed one guy that discovered it. So one guy's tinkering with it, and he tells somebody, "Hey, there's something wrong with these." Israelis found out about them, neutralized him, and they were after the other guy, but they were able to explode them before the news got out. So this was not the ultimate time for them to explode these devices.
Yeah.
What they wanted to do is get all their troops and everything prepared on the border, and then hit the devices, and then invade at that same time. So
Yeah,
they had to use it or lose it, basically, when it was discovered.
Yeah, and currently the Israel is demanding that Hezbollah move its weapons and fighters north of the Litani River, which runs between 4 and 30 kilometers from the Lebanese border. All right, so basically, what the demand there is on the basis that we're protecting 60,000 residents of Israel's northern communities.
Well, this was part of this peace deal that came up back in 2006 when Israel actually eventually got chased out of Lebanon. But that part of the deal was that Hezbollah keep its munitions north of the Litani River. They haven't. They've brought them into southern Lebanon. So they have to bring it, and I think it may be a moot point because Hezbollah now has rockets and stuff that distance doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah,
but it makes very clear. I think Israel wants to invade southern Lebanon and hold the territory from the border to the Litani River. I think there's another aspect here that's never being talked about, and that is water. Water is a big deal in the Middle East, and the Litani River, they want access to the Litani River. That's been an issue for a very long time, particularly among Zionists. They want the border to go up that farther, of Israel to go that far anyway, and the access to that water has always been a coveted thing for the Israelis.
That doesn't seem very much, except for what you're saying about with the water.
Yeah, it means that, but also, if Israel was to go in there and occupy that area, it could, I can see what's happening in Bibi's mind. If he can get that hunk of Lebanon, he can add it to the idea of a greater Israel.
Yeah,
they've got the Golan Heights. They're trying to make the Palestinians so miserable in the West Bank that they'll leave. They haven't left. And of course, they're just annihilating the people in Gaza. They're doing all kinds of war crimes here. They're doing everything against the rules of war, and yet the United States doesn't have a spine. As a matter of fact, they're adding their own troops to the mix over there, and they're sending over another aircraft carrier. Iran is completely crippled. They don't know. They've found that Israel's inside their intelligence capabilities too, because they were able to kill the Hamas negotiator right in the most secure compound in Iran. So everybody, I think the Middle East, everybody in the Middle East, Hezbollah, and the Iranians are really, really running scared at this particular time because they really are thrown back by the amount of information the Israelis are using, their intelligence. I mean, they took out that embassy in Syria. They took out commanders in Beirut more than once. They've killed a couple of hot top commanders in Beirut again this year. They took out the chief negotiator of Hamas right in the most secure compound in Iran, the most secure compound in Iran, where the Ayatollah himself stays. So they must be thinking, where is the leaks? Well, this is a combined effort between the United States and Israel, obviously. In the targeting of the Hezbollah targets, over 200 or something the other day, that's obviously with the help of the United States, because Israel doesn't have those capabilities. But what they do have is sophisticated spy networks. Look what they were able to do. They were able to get into Hungary and add things to the pagers in the manufacturing process, and it didn't get discovered until some curious Hezbollah guy started looking at his pager and wondering if there's anything wrong with it. And once he did discover it, they were able to assassinate him, but it was just a matter of time before the others found
Well,
it.
the other
So they
thing
had to
is
use it or lose it.
the other thing about this is Lebanon has reported 569 people killed and 1,835 injured in these Israeli airstrikes, including 50
Israel is
children.
doing the same thing. Israel's doing the same thing it did in Gaza. It's dropping leaflets and phoning people and telling them, get out of southern Lebanon because we're coming.
Yeah.
We're going to be dropping bombs.
And we're going to be coming back to this subject at some point anyway.
The United Nations is doing what it always does. It says, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but it keeps going on. The United States has said, oh, well, you know, that's not good. All these people dying. Here, Israel, have some more bombs. Here, try this one. This is our latest and greatest.
Yeah. All right. I think we're going to have to end it there, Dave.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, everyone. Pray for peace.